my name is Carina Leland, and this is my semester project for Physics 117, The Beauty of Physics. This is titled Finding Flow in the Theater. I am a freshman theater technology major, and this year I have really explored a lot about stage management within the theater. In the fall, I took Intro to Stage Management for fun. I loved it, and took the next class in the spring and have stage managed for 4 different shows this school year. Now you may be thinking, okay Karina, that's cool, but I'm not a theater person. What is stage management? What does this even have to do with the semester project? Excellent question. For any play or musical, the stage manager is the central point of communication and provides a lot of organizational support for the director, the cast, the designers, the crew. The stage manager takes care of a lot of the practical needs so that the director and actors can focus on the artistry of the story. A large part of the stage manager's job during rehearsals is to make a positive and supportive environment for the directors and actors to work. The actors need to have a good environment so they are comfortable focusing on and diving into their work. So my goal of exploring flow is to help myself as a stage manager learn what kind of environment and support is useful for actors to enter the flow state. I originally wanted to meet with a bunch of different actor friends and have them rehearse in different spaces under different conditions, but most of my friends turned out to be very busy, as is what happens in the last couple of weeks of school. So I ended up meeting with one friend and added a bit of research because I wanted to know, what exactly do we know about the flow state? The idea of flow was founded by the psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Born in Hungary in 1934, he was sent to an Italian prison during World War II when he was less than 10 years old. He noticed that the adults in his life never seemed happy because they lost their homes and their jobs due to the war. He, however, realized that he could forget about his worries when playing chess for hours on end. Thus, he became interested in this feeling of flow. After the war, he traveled to Switzerland where he heard Carl Jung, another famous psychologist, speak about the mental trauma of Europeans because of World War II. Csikszentmihalyi became very interested in psychology and began observing many creatives such as painters and artists. He discovered that the process of creating their work was often more important or rewarding than the actual finished product. He then completed and published his famous experience sampling study, also known as the beeper study, where he asked teenagers to record their thoughts and feelings every time a pager beeped throughout their everyday lives. It turned out that these subjects often felt more upbeat when focusing on one challenging task. In 1980, Csikszentmihalyi published a book titled Flow: The Psychology of Optimal Experience, describing the idea that we can increase our happiness as we learn to better achieve flow. So this is how many people know about flow today. So let's dive a little deeper into flow itself. Also often called being in the zone, the basic idea of flow is that you are so focused on one thing that nothing else matters, and you often don't notice what's happening outside of you. People who experience flow often describe feeling completely focused, a sense of ecstasy and serenity, and a great inner clarity. Many philosophers talk about 9 different components of flow. Number 1, merging of action and awareness, where using your body brings total awareness to the activity at hand. Number 2, total concentration and focus. Your nervous system can process about 110 bits of information in 1 second. When so much focus is centered around one activity, the brain spends all of its available neurons on that activity, and you physically can't think about anything else. Thus, you forget about external worries, needing to rest or eat, even your personal identity, as well as being self-conscious, as described by number 3, loss of self-consciousness. Number 4, transformation of time. People describe time as passing super slowly when they are in flow. Sometimes, however, only a few minutes pass when you think it's been hours. Number 5, an autotelic experience. Autotelic means to have a purpose in itself. So an autotelic experience is one that is intrinsically motivating. You do it for the experience itself or to achieve clear goals, which is component number 6. Number 7, feedback on goals. This provides you with information towards your progress on those goals mentioned in number 6. Number 8, sense of control. Even though the task may literally have elements that are out of your control, you have the confidence to work your way through any challenge that might be presented. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, is a challenge skills balance. The challenge skills balance is best described with this chart. We can see that if an activity is too hard, you might become anxious or worried. If the task is too easy, you will quickly fall into boredom or too much relaxation. When you continue farther into this upper right-hand corner, you achieve a state of flow. Finding a task that is at the limit of your skill set so that it is still challenging but still achievable will give you the focus needed to dive into the activity. Finding ways to increase any of these components should make it easier for you to experience flow. However, people such as professional athletes have reported only feeling 5 or 6 of these components at once when in the flow state. So it's best to not try to get every single one, but focus on a few. There are other techniques that have been observed to increase the ease of finding flow, such as finding a positive environment, greater autonomy, social support, and good coaching. Flow has also been found to be contagious among teammates and in mentor-student relationships, so having a strong, healthy bond with those in the room or on the field with you will help facilitate flow among everyone. And previous experience with being in the flow state will increase the likelihood of being able to achieve it again. One of the biggest disruptions of flow is losing your rhythm, so the ability to not be stopped once in the middle of an activity is very important. Several factors may help or hinder flow depending on the circumstances and if done positively, including team interactions, preparation, motivation, thoughts and emotions, and reflecting on one's performance. In other words, flow can be affected by nearly everything in the surrounding environment, so it is very important to look at the details when trying to make a space that facilitates flow. With all of this in mind, I think now would be a great time to bring in a real-world application of finding flow. As I said before, I only got to meet with one friend, so this project is not as scientifically accurate as I'd like it to be, but I am incredibly grateful to my friend who has donated some time to help me with this project. We were still able to practice on 2 different days in 2 different locations. Each time I did a pre-interview with her, she did her monologue, and then we did a post-interview reflecting on her experience. I had 2 main variables. One was location. I wanted somewhere very neutral, which ended up being a dorm study room, because this is very similar to a theater rehearsal room, and somewhere homey, and this ended up being her dorm room. And the other variable was practicing with or without being filmed. So, without further ado, let's jump into the first day of rehearsal. Hello, this is the first person I'm getting to do this with. So this is my friend. Do you want to say like your first name, grade, major?
Yeah, totally. Hi, I'm Emma, and I am a freshman theater major and comp sci minor.
Yeah. On a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the worst, 1 being the best, how do you feel like physically?
Probably like 1 is the best.
1 is, what did I say?
You said, yeah. Okay. Probably like 2.
2?
You know, feeling okay, not like excellent or anything.
Cool.
But
how about mentally? Like emotionally, stress-wise?
Probably like around a 3, middle of the road. Like,
cool.
I was really stressed, but I got a couple finals over with, so I'm feeling good.
Good.
Still working it.
What have you been up to before this?
Well, I was working on an essay for Nearing's class.
Yeah.
Sort of like wrapping up the semester. And then I am also working on a project for my Theater for Social Change class. I have to do a slideshow for that and have a math final that is dense.
So
the take-home final. So a lot of stressful stuff, but
okay.
We're getting there. We're finishing it up.
We're so getting there. How much are you able to sleep lately?
I've actually been able to sleep a good amount lately because all my finals are in the morning. So if I don't stay up too terribly late, then I can get a good amount of sleep. And today I didn't have anything at all, so I was able to
That's
sleep in for
nice.
like a long time.
What was the last thing you ate?
The last thing I ate was a sandwich from Earth.
Ooh.
I got the
Good.
sprouts sandwich, but without the sprouts.
Was that like your dinner?
That was dinner, yeah.
Cool. Do you feel ready to jump into some...
Let's do it. Let's
It's gonna go
act.
so well. We got this.
I learned how to kiss on the clarinet, but I learned how to love on the oboe. Unrequited love, my specialty. Mr. Harnett wants me to play the oboe. I don't know why. Mr. Harnett wants to torture me. The oboe is a complex, difficult instrument. It requires the smallest of breaths. Too much, and the sound is over-eager and desperate. It's an embarrassment. When you play did I say clarinet?
I have no clue.
I'm going to start over, because
Okay.
I feel like 90% sure that I said clarinet. It should have been oboe. Mr. Harnett knows that the oboe is the perfect instrument for one doing her best to disappear. When I play, I make myself small and contained. I pretend I'm invisible. I like to hide inside the sounds as if they're coming from someone else. This is about flow state. I'm not in the flow state. A breath that's just right, just enough for one sound to release into the world as I did then. A song waiting to be released, steady, clear, and free. So many of those words wrong.
Hi, so we're back after completing a little monologue session. So I'm gonna ask you a few of the same questions I asked at the beginning. How are you feeling physically, 1 through 5?
Physically, still a 2. Feels fine.
Mentally?
Mentally, I mean, still pretty middle of the road.
Did you feel like you got into the flow state at all? Or
Later near the end, I felt a little bit better about it. I mean, I'm still working on lines, so that was sort of impeding me, but
right.
I was able to get into it a little more, but not like a ton.
So we actually did 2 takes. One was on camera, one was off camera. Did you feel better with either one in particular?
I think I felt better without the camera. It definitely gets into your head a little bit. I don't know how all those screen actors do it.
I mean, there is certainly the aspect of like having the camera watching you. But of course that was the second time you did it, so I think you were a little bit better with the lines.
Definitely.
Do you think that had an effect with it? Or was
I
it
think that
mostly
had an
camera?
effect on it too. It was sort of a combination of the both. I was getting a little better with it, but also the pressure was off a little bit more because, there wasn't the camera watching.
Yeah. I think that's it. Any last words for the audience?
I'm good.
Cool. Signing out. Okay. Hello again. This is part 2 of working with Emma.
Part 2.
So I think I'm just going to ask you a few of the questions that I asked you yesterday, like the same things I did at the beginning. What did I start with yesterday?
1 to 5 or 5 to 1.
Let's go with 1 to 5.
Okay.
I feel like I'm doing this backwards, aren't I? On a scale.
On the scale.
The
The pre-established scale.
1 being the best, 5 being the worst. How are you feeling today physically?
Physically, like still about a 2. Same as last time, We're going.
Yeah. Mentally?
Mentally also probably about a 2, which is better than yesterday.
Yeah, it
because I'm
is.
like that much closer to being done.
What did you do before this? Or how was your stress level?
Well, before this, I had my my acting fundamentals final, so I did these monologues for a grade. After that, like for the rest of the day, I just I went to get lunch and just been like working on homework and stuff.
How much were you able to sleep last night?
Like 4 hours.
That's finals week for you.
That's finals week.
What was the last thing you ate? Was it like a meal?
Last thing I ate was chai and a grilled cheese from Starbucks, and they were both delicious.
Those are good. Those are very good.
It had like the cold foam.
Remind us what piece you're doing. This time.
The piece that I'm doing is The Reluctant Instrument from Backstory, and I think this monologue is written by Nina Bieber, if I'm correct.
Let's get started.
Let's get started. I learned how to kiss on the clarinet, but I learned how to love on the oboe. Unrequited love, my specialty. Mr. Harnett wants me to play the oboe. I don't know why. Mr. Harnett wants to torture me. The oboe is a complex and difficult instrument. It requires the smallest of breaths. Too much and the sound is an embarrassment. Overeager and desperate. The oboe, it requires passion, but also control. Force, but also restraint. Mr. Harnett knows that the oboe is the perfect instrument for one doing her best to disappear. When I play, I make myself small and contained. I pretend I'm invisible, and I hide inside the sounds like they're coming from somewhere else. I don't think I'll ever get it right. Mr. Harnett makes music. Mr. Harnett has gray eyes and black hair and wears crisp white shirts. He's like a black and white photograph, a 19th century novel, a postcard from Paris. He looks best against the snow. He looks best against the snow, and that's how I picture him. Have I admitted to imagining him? Gray eyes and black hair and music. Music in his soul, as I have in mine, though he wouldn't know it. When you play the oboe, you have to plan your breathing. You have to decide where to inhale and where to let go. The only problem is every time I take a breath, I think, I'm in love with Mr. Harnett, and I nearly burst. In the future, I will discover 3 things. I was a better oboe player than I thought. The oboe was bought for me, not with school band funds, but by Mr. Harnett himself. My love for Mr. Harnett was not unrequited. Maybe I know that already. Maybe I'll write him a letter. I probably won't. Okay, I definitely won't, but there he is. Mr. Harnett, his shades of gray against the snow. Someone to return to in a circular breath that comes every so often as breath should. Full, expansive, not taking any more than it can give, but a breath that's just right, just enough to let loose a single note into the world as I went then. A song waiting to be released. Steady, clear, and free. Now I get the words right?
Okay, so we just finished part 2.
Part 2.
Of the acting monologues. So I'll start with the 2 basic questions on a scale of 1 to 5. How are you feeling physically?
Scale 1 to 5. I think same on both fronts. 2 physical, 2 mental.
Cool.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Good. So how did that feel for you today versus yesterday?
It felt a lot better today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think part of that might just been that I got more practice in between,
Sure.
Yesterday and today. And also just that I feel like I'm doing better in general. It definitely was more comfortable to do it, like, in my own space, not just in some, like, random study room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that was a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there were all these, like, people walking by the windows, and we were like...
We again did 2 versions today,
Mm-hmm.
one with the camera and one without. How did those feel compared to each other?
Yeah, I definitely liked the one without the camera better than the one with the camera, which is ironic, because now I wish that was the one that was recorded. I've done it so many times now, like, just in the past 2 days, that I feel like the practice wouldn't have really had an effect in between those 2 takes, because the first one I got everything correct anyway. But on the second one, I felt like I was just able to, like, play a little more, which, there was no actual pressure,
Right.
Because, like, no one's, like, gonna be watching these and being like, that wasn't a good acting choice, But when there wasn't this, like, imaginary thing there, I felt more at ease to just, like, sort of play around with things.
Any last words for my science teacher and for life in general?
Yeah. I don't know, I can't think of any words.
That's fine.
Bye. Bye.
It was fun to get to do this together. We don't have our acting class together, so we don't get to see each other perform very often. When I was preparing this project, I did have some things that I thought might happen with the acting experiment, and some did, and others didn't. I was fairly confident that Emma would be more comfortable without the camera than with the camera, and because many people have the same reaction, it's easier to focus on what you're supposed to be doing when there's not the pressure of something recording you. This lines up with the idea of removing distractions and allowing you to focus on the task at hand, which facilitates flow. I was not entirely sure whether Emma would feel better performing in the study room or the dorm room. I thought the study room could be better for a neutral environment with fewer distractions, but the dorm room also has the cozy, comfy aspect that might make it easier. The room with fewer distractions, however, ended up being the dorm room because with the study room, you can see people walk by, as she mentioned, so the dorm room is more private. I think that the comfort and familiarity of being in her own space also was another reason why the dorm room worked better, and this leads me to believe that as a stage manager, I should try and make the rehearsal room as comfy and homey as possible, which might facilitate a sense of ease and flow in the cast. While it was not one of my two main variables, I also did ask Emma about her mental and physical health during the rehearsals. Since she was in the middle of finals on the first day, she had quite a bit of more stress, which I think did lead to some more of the distraction, as well as just not being as familiar with the monologue as on the second day. By the second day, she did have a lot less to worry about, as she was also done with using that monologue for her final, so there was a lot less distracting from her task. So it does turn out that a more homey and comfortable environment, as well as minimizing the pressure and stress on performers, does make it easier to find flow. Overall, this experiment has been pretty educational for me. I've learned that flow very much depends on how much focus someone can put on the task in front of them, so minimizing any distractions like people walking by or maybe electronics and things like that is important to keeping that focus and the flow. It's better to have the cozy, comfortable environment rather than the stark, neutral rehearsal room style. So any way to make the room more homey, whether that's adding snacks or adding a little personal touch of decor to the room or something, would probably be beneficial to helping the cast feel at ease. Lastly, it is extremely important to monitor stress levels and make sure those are as low as possible. Emma became so much more playful and in the moment when the stress was off and she didn't have to worry about really the performance. So whether I can make sure there's fewer people in the room watching to make it less of a serious thing, or just regularly checking in on actors, I think would be very beneficial. So now after doing this, I hope that I can bring some of these practices to the rehearsal room and help my cast have an easier time finding flow. Thank you for watching, and this has been my semester project.